My ex-fiance stole my engagement ring and sold it, then had the nerve to ask for it back after we broke up. It's amazing how quickly everything can change. One moment, you're standing on the edge of your future, full of hope and excitement, and the next, it's as if the ground beneath you has disappeared, and you're falling, tumbling into a space that feels empty and foreign. That's what happened to me when my ex-fiance, Ryan, stole my engagement ring and sold it, then had the audacity to ask for it back after we broke up. It felt like the ultimate betrayal, and it's taken me a long time to even begin processing what happened. Let me take you back to when it all started. The proposal, the dream, the belief that I was going to marry the love of my life. We had been together for over 3 years. Ryan and I met in college, both studying business, and instantly hit it off. We were the perfect pair, or at least I thought we were. He was charming, successful, and confident, while I was more reserved, introverted, and thoughtful. He seemed to complete me in ways I hadn't realized I needed. I thought we had a love that was built to last, a partnership that would carry us through whatever life threw at us. After a few years of dating, the question came. It was the night of our anniversary, and we were having dinner at a fancy restaurant downtown, a place I had always dreamed of going to but never quite had the means for. It was an elegant setting, with soft lighting and a breathtaking view of the skyline. Ryan seemed nervous, but I didn't think much of it. He always had a tendency to get fidgety, especially when it came to surprises. I had no idea that night would be the night my life would change forever. After dessert, when the meal was winding down, he pulled out a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. At first, I thought it was a joke, but when he opened it and revealed the sparkling diamond engagement ring, my heart skipped a beat. He was asking me to marry him. I was overwhelmed with emotion. We had talked about getting married before, but I didn't expect it to happen so suddenly, so beautifully, in such an intimate moment. I said yes without hesitation, and we both cried, hugging each other in excitement. My heart swelled with happiness. It felt like everything had led to this moment. The proposal was perfect, the ring was everything I had ever wanted, and Ryan seemed like he was genuinely thrilled about our future together. It was everything I had dreamed of. For weeks, everything felt magical. We started planning our wedding, discussing the venue, the guest list, the colors. The excitement of our engagement was infectious. Friends and family were overjoyed for us, and I couldn't wait to begin this new chapter of my life. But as with most fairy tales, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. Beneath the surface, there were cracks that I didn't see until it was too late. It started with small things at first, Ryan being absent-minded, leaving me to make decisions on our wedding plans alone. Then, he began getting more distant. He started staying late at work, going out with friends more often, and when we were together, he seemed distracted. At first, I chalked it up to the pressures of planning a wedding, but soon it became clear that there was something more going on. He wasn't just stressed. He was avoiding me. One night, after weeks of feeling like I was living with a stranger, I decided to confront him. We were sitting on the couch, the engagement ring still gleaming on my finger, a constant reminder of the promises we had made. I asked him point blank what was going on. "Ryan, is everything okay? You've been distant for a while, and it feels like you're shutting me out. Are we still on the same page about this marriage?" He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something cold in his eyes, something I hadn't noticed before. He hesitated, then responded, "I'm just stressed, okay? We're planning a wedding, there's work, and things are just getting overwhelming. It's nothing personal." But I didn't buy it. His words didn't match his actions. I could feel the growing distance between us. It wasn't just about wedding stress or work. Something was off, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being lied to. Despite that feeling, I brushed it off. I was so caught up in the excitement of the wedding, the future, that I didn't let myself dwell too much on my doubts. But as the weeks went by, the unease lingered. I began to see more signs of something being wrong. He would go out without telling me where, or when he did tell me, the stories didn't add up. I started noticing that he wasn't wearing the engagement ring as often, which struck me as odd, but again, I made excuses for him. Maybe he was just feeling the pressure, I thought. Then, one afternoon, it all came crashing down. I had gone out for coffee with a friend and came back earlier than expected. I walked into the apartment, and as I passed the living room, I saw something that made my stomach turn. Ryan was sitting on the couch, holding the engagement ring in his hands. I froze, unsure of what I was seeing. He didn't notice me at first, and as I watched him inspect the ring, it hit me like a slap in the face. I had always been so careful with it, keeping it in its box when I wasn't wearing it. But there he was, turning it over, examining it like it was an object to be appraised. "Ryan, what are you doing?" I asked, my voice trembling. He immediately dropped the ring, looking guilty. "It's nothing. I was just looking at it. I just wanted to make sure it was real." I didn't know what to say. Something was terribly wrong. I had never seen him act this way. His eyes were avoiding mine, and his body language was all wrong. "Ryan, what's going on?" I asked, now feeling a deep sense of dread filling my chest. "Why are you acting like this? This isn't like you." He looked up at me, his face shifting from guilt to something I couldn't quite read. Defensiveness, maybe? He stood up quickly, walking past me. I said, "It's nothing. I'm just stressed, okay?" But the way he said it, there was no conviction. It wasn't just the stress anymore. This was something else. And as I stood there, staring at the ring on the couch, I realized with a sinking feeling that something was terribly wrong. That night, I didn't get much sleep. I tossed and turned, replaying everything in my mind. The way Ryan had acted, the way he seemed to distance himself from me, the unease that had been creeping up in our relationship over the past few weeks. It was all there, right in front of me, but I had been too blind to see it. The engagement ring, the symbol of our love, of our future, wasn't just a piece of jewelry to him anymore. It was an object, a thing to be examined and possibly even discarded. And that scared me more than I cared to admit. The next morning, I was determined to confront him. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when it was so clearly falling apart. I needed answers, and I needed to know the truth. I spent the morning pacing around the apartment, mentally preparing myself for what was to come. Part of me was still holding on to the hope that it was just a rough patch, that we could get past whatever was going on. But another part of me knew deep down that something was terribly wrong. When Ryan finally came out of the bedroom, he looked tired. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his usually put-together appearance seemed more disheveled. But I wasn't going to let that distract me. I needed to have this conversation. "Ryan, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady but failing. The emotion behind the words was wrong, and it was hard to keep it in check. "What's going on? Why are you acting like this?" He gave me a half-hearted smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. "It's nothing, babe. Just stress from work, you know how it is." I shook my head. "It's not just work, Ryan. I'm not stupid. You've been distant for weeks. You haven't been wearing your ring. You've been avoiding me, and when I walked in yesterday, I caught you with the ring in your hands. What the hell is going on?" Ryan's face faltered for a moment, and I saw the faintest flicker of guilt pass through his eyes before he quickly masked it with a defensive expression. "I told you it's nothing. I was just looking at it, okay? I've been stressed, and I'm dealing with a lot right now. This wedding, the pressure, it's all a lot, and I just needed some space." His words were starting to sound rehearsed, and the more he spoke, the more I felt the pit in my stomach grow. This wasn't just about wedding stress. There was something bigger at play here, something he wasn't telling me. I pressed further, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "You've been telling me it's just stress, but this feels like something more. If it's really just stress, then why have you been acting so cold? Why did you hide the ring from me? Why didn't you tell me the truth about it yesterday?" Ryan shifted uncomfortably on the couch, looking everywhere but at me. His eyes darted to the floor, to the wall, to the coffee table, anywhere but my face. And that told me everything I needed to know. "Come on, Ryan," I said, my voice now trembling with frustration. "This isn't just about a little stress. You're avoiding me, and I don't know why, but I deserve to know the truth." He stood up, pacing the room, clearly agitated now. He ran his hand through his hair and then turned to face me. "You're making this a bigger deal than it is. Can't you just drop it? I'm telling you, it's just stress. I've got a lot on my plate right now, and I don't know how to handle it all." But I wasn't buying it anymore. I couldn't. Not after everything. The way he was acting, the way he couldn't even meet my eyes, made it clear that something else was going on. "Ryan," I said, my voice breaking, "I need the truth. If this isn't just stress, then what is it? What's really happening here?" He took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, clearly struggling with something. Then, finally, he looked at me, not with the usual warmth, but with an uncomfortable, almost distant look in his eyes. "Okay," he said, his voice lower now. "Okay, fine. You want the truth? Here it is." He paused for a long time, his gaze flickering nervously. "I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if I'm ready to marry you. My heart dropped into my stomach. The words stung more than I could have anticipated, as if someone had just slapped me across the face. I didn't know what to say. The room felt like it was closing in around me, the air thick with tension. You're not ready to marry me?" I repeated, barely able to process the words. Ryan ran his hands over his face, looking exhausted. "Look, I've been thinking about it a lot, and I don't know if this is what I want anymore. I don't know if we're right for each other. I thought I was sure, but now I'm not so sure." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. All of the excitement, the dreams, the plans for the future, everything we had built together in the last 3 years suddenly felt like it was crumbling, disintegrating before my eyes. "Ryan, how could you not be sure?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "We've been planning this. We've talked about our future together. How can you just say you're not sure?" "I know," he said, his voice softening a bit, but there was no warmth in it. I thought I was sure too. But after everything, after all the pressure of the wedding and everything that's happened between us, I started to realize that maybe I'm not ready for this. Maybe I'm not ready to settle down with anyone. I just need space to think, and I don't know what I want right now. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't even speak at first. I just sat there, frozen, my mind reeling with confusion and hurt. Everything we had planned, our wedding, our life together, was suddenly on the line, and I didn't know what to do. "Are you saying you don't want to be with me anymore?" I finally managed to ask, my voice small. He didn't answer right away. He just looked at me, the silence hanging heavy between us. "I don't know," he said after a long pause. "I don't know if I can be the person you need me to be." The finality of his words settled in, and for a moment, all I could do was stare at him. The man I had planned to spend the rest of my life with was standing in front of me, telling me he wasn't sure if he wanted to be with me at all. My heart shattered in that moment, and the tears started to fall, unbidden. "Ryan, why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked, choking on my words. "Why did you let me believe everything was fine? Why did you let me keep planning a future that you weren't even sure about?" He looked away, his face full of guilt, but also, I realized, relief. "I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I could figure it out on my own, but I can't." The room felt suffocating. The pain in my chest was overwhelming, and I didn't know how to process it all. The person I had trusted with my heart, my future, was standing there, telling me that everything we had built together was falling apart, and I didn't even know why. "I need to be alone for a while," I said finally, standing up, feeling like I was drowning in a sea of confusion and heartbreak. "I can't do this right now." Ryan nodded, his face crumpling as if he wanted to say something, but didn't know how. I couldn't look at him anymore. I couldn't look at the man who had promised me everything, only to pull it away without warning. I turned and left the room, my heart aching with each step, my mind struggling to make sense of what had just happened. The days that followed my confrontation with Ryan felt like a blur. I wasn't sure if I was living in a nightmare or if this was just some cruel, twisted reality I had to endure. We had been living together for the last few years, and suddenly, everything had been upended. The engagement ring I had once worn with such pride, the symbol of our commitment to each other, now felt like a hollow reminder of everything that was falling apart. I tried to keep myself busy, but the weight of what had just happened was too heavy to ignore. My thoughts kept circling back to the same questions. How had things gotten this bad? Why hadn't I seen the signs? How could someone who had promised me forever turn their back on me so easily? Ryan had moved out by the end of the week. It wasn't a dramatic exit. He had packed his things in silence, his face as unreadable as ever. I had expected tears, maybe even a fight, but instead, there was only a coldness between us. The love I once saw in his eyes was gone, replaced by something distant and foreign. He didn't even seem to have an explanation for what had happened. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came a few days after he left. I was in the living room, going through some boxes of wedding-related things, trying to sort out what needed to be returned or donated. The dress had already been ordered, the invitations already addressed. It all felt like a cruel joke now. So much effort, so many plans, all gone in an instant. I pulled out the file of receipts and wedding-related documents, thinking I would organize them and be done with it. As I flipped through, I came across a small, folded envelope. It wasn't something I recognized, and it wasn't something I had seen before. Curious, I opened it, and inside, there was a note. The handwriting was unmistakably Ryan's, and my stomach dropped when I read it. I'm sorry. I had no choice. I didn't think you'd notice. Confused, I read it again, my hands trembling as the words sank in. What was this? What had Ryan done that he thought I wouldn't notice? The more I thought about it, the more something inside me told me I wasn't ready to face what was coming. But I had no choice. I had to know. The envelope contained something else, a bank receipt. My heart stopped when I saw the total amount, the date, and the name of the pawn shop. I stood there, stunned, the paper slipping from my hands as the realization hit me. My engagement ring, my beautiful, carefully chosen, one-of-a-kind ring, was gone. Ryan had sold it. Not only had he left me, but he had also stolen the one thing I had kept close to my heart for months. The symbol of our love, our future, the promise he had made to me. It was gone, and I was left with the remnants of his betrayal. I didn't know what to do. My mind was racing, trying to piece together the puzzle that Ryan had carefully constructed. The ring, he had sold it. I couldn't comprehend it. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that he had been so callous, so cruel. I had thought he was distancing himself because of stress, but this was something different. This was an intentional act, and it left me feeling hollow inside. I immediately picked up my phone and dialed his number, desperate for some explanation, some reason behind his actions. It rang a few times before going to voicemail, and I tried not to let my frustration show. I left a message, my voice tight with emotion. Ryan, I don't know what to say. I found the pawn receipt. You sold the ring. Why would you do that? Please, just explain. I need to understand. I need some answers. I hung up, staring at the phone in disbelief. The betrayal was so complete that I didn't know where to go from here. How could someone do something so vile? The more I thought about it, the more the weight of it all hit me. Ryan had not just abandoned me. He had taken something irreplaceable, something symbolic of our entire future, and sold it like it was just another thing. He had sold the ring, without hesitation, without a second thought. I spent the next few days in a daze, unable to focus on anything. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't even bring myself to open the blinds. The entire apartment felt suffocating. Every time I looked at the empty space where the ring had once been, it reminded me of the hollow shell of a life I had been living with Ryan. He had taken something so meaningful to me, and I couldn't figure out why. But then, Ryan called. I didn't want to pick up, but I knew I had no choice. If there was ever going to be any closure, I had to hear him out. When I answered, his voice was strained, as if he was caught between guilt and something else. "Bae," he said, his voice flat and motionless. "I got your message." "Yeah, I don't know what to say, Ryan," I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. "You sold the ring. You didn't just break up with me. You stole from me. Why would you do that?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment, I wondered if he was going to hang up. "I didn't think you'd notice," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought if I sold the ring, it wouldn't matter. But I was wrong. I'm sorry. I was speechless." "Sorry," I repeated, my voice shaking with anger. "Sorry for what? For selling the ring? For lying to me? For betraying me? I never meant for it to go this far," he said quickly. Things weren't working between us, and I panicked. I didn't know how to fix it, so I made a mistake. I sold the ring to pay off some bills. I needed the money. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You didn't think to talk to me about it? You didn't think about what the ring meant to me?" "I was an idiot," he said, sounding almost apologetic, but it didn't matter. His excuses fell flat. There was nothing he could say to fix this. "I messed up. I know I did, but I don't know how to make it right." I took a deep breath, trying to control my emotions. "You can't make it right, Ryan. The ring was a symbol of everything I thought we had, and now it's gone, and so is everything else." "I know," he said quietly. "I just wanted you to know the truth. I didn't want to keep lying to you." I didn't say anything for a moment. What could I say? The man I had once planned to marry, the person I had trusted with my heart, had taken the one thing that symbolized our future and sold it. The realization hit me harder than I could have ever anticipated. "You want the ring back, don't you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated. "Yes, I do. I don't know how else to fix this. I just need it back. Can we talk about it? Please." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything, after he sold the ring, now he was asking for it back? "No, Ryan," I said firmly, my heart pounding. "You can't have it back. You don't get to take something so precious, destroy it, and then ask for it back when it suits you." I could hear him on the other end, his voice faltering as if he didn't know what to say. But there was nothing more to say. I had reached my breaking point. I don't know what you want from me. I continued, my voice cold. You've taken everything. My trust, my love, my future. You sold the ring, and you want it back? I'm done. I hung up before he could respond. And as I sat there, the weight of everything hit me. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was heartbroken, devastated, and deeply disappointed in myself for not seeing the signs sooner. But one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let Ryan control my life any longer. He had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, and no amount of apologies or excuses would change what had happened. The ring was gone, and so was any chance of a future with Ryan. The days after my conversation with Ryan felt like a blur. I moved through the motions of my life, but it all felt detached, like I was watching someone else's story unfold. Work, friends, errands, they all became background noise as my mind repeatedly replayed the phone call I had with Ryan, the moment he admitted to selling the ring, and his audacity in asking for it back. I still couldn't wrap my head around it. How could someone I had loved, someone I had trusted with everything, do something so cruel? I spent the next few days in a haze, unable to concentrate on anything for long. The engagement ring, the symbol of everything I thought I was going to have, was gone, sold off for bills Ryan didn't even have the decency to discuss with me. But more than the ring, what hurt was the betrayal, the coldness of it. He had lied, avoided me, and when he finally admitted what he'd done, he seemed more focused on the financial loss than the emotional devastation he had caused. I felt like an afterthought in his life, someone who didn't matter enough to even discuss the fate of something so significant. I didn't want to tell my friends. I didn't want anyone else to know what Ryan had done, but I couldn't keep it in. I reached out to Jessica, my best friend, the one person who had been there through thick and thin. She had watched my relationship with Ryan grow, had celebrated with me when he proposed, and had been with me during the moments of doubt I had suppressed. Now, she was the one I needed to lean on. We met for coffee a few days later, and I could see the concern in her eyes when she saw the look on my face. "Hey, what's going on?" she asked, her voice gentle but insistent. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I was ready to say the words out loud, but I couldn't keep it inside any longer. I needed to tell someone, to speak the truth about what had happened. Finally, I blurted it out. Ryan sold my engagement ring. Her face froze for a moment, and I could see the disbelief in her eyes as she processed the words. "What? Are you serious?" she asked, almost laughing, as though it was a joke I was playing on her. "I wish it was," I said, my voice tight. "I found the pawn receipt, Jessica. He sold it. After everything we've been through, after the proposal, he just sold it, and then had the nerve to ask me to give it back." Her face went from shock to concern, and she immediately reached out and grabbed my hand. "I'm so sorry. I don't even know what to say. That is beyond messed up. He actually sold the ring." "Yes," I said, shaking my head in disbelief. "I don't even know how to feel about it. I keep thinking I'm overreacting, that maybe it's just a ring, but it's not just that. It's the fact that he could do that he could take something so precious, so meaningful, and just get rid of it. He didn't even try to talk to me about the money or anything. He just sold it like it was nothing." Jessica squeezed my hand tighter, her expression softening with sympathy. "You're not overreacting. That's beyond hurtful. It's cruel. He didn't just take something from you. He took your future, your trust, and your belief in your relationship. I'm so sorry, honey. You deserve so much better than that." Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes, and I quickly wiped them away, embarrassed by the vulnerability that was now on full display. I feel like I don't even know him anymore. The Ryan I was in love with wouldn't do this. He wouldn't hurt me like this. "You're right. He wouldn't. But clearly, that's not the person he is now," Jessica said, her voice firm but kind. "And I know it's hard to accept, but maybe this is the wake-up call you need. Maybe it's time to realize that he's not who you thought he was, and it's time for you to move on." I nodded, the words resonating deep within me. I knew Jessica was right. I couldn't keep hanging on to a person who had shown me, in the worst way possible, who they really were. But it was hard to let go, especially when I still loved him. There was a part of me that wanted to forgive him, to believe in the person I thought he was. But I also knew that trusting him again, after everything he had done, wasn't something I could easily do. Over the next few weeks, I began the long and painful process of moving on. Ryan didn't reach out again after that phone call, and part of me was grateful for that. What could he possibly say? There was nothing left to salvage. He had taken the ring. He had broken my heart. And now he was gone. I spent a lot of time reflecting on the relationship, on the good times and the bad, on the way things had seemed perfect before everything fell apart. I thought about how I had ignored the warning signs, how I had overlooked the way Ryan had been acting distant. In some way, I felt responsible for not seeing what was happening, for not confronting him sooner. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I wasn't the one to blame. He had made choices. He had lied to me. He had stolen something that was never his to take. And in the end, I wasn't the one who had broken this relationship. It was him. Jessica kept checking in on me, and slowly, I started to piece myself back together. I took time off from work to clear my head, to focus on healing. I saw a therapist to work through the emotional turmoil, to unpack everything I had been through. And little by little, I started to feel like myself again. But it wasn't easy. One evening, I found myself sitting in front of a mirror, the empty space on my finger where the ring used to be now staring back at me. I had thought that ring would be there forever, that it was a promise that no matter what happened, we would be together. But the truth was, Ryan had taken that promise and broken it. And now, I had to make a promise to myself. I would never let someone take away my sense of self-worth again. I wouldn't let anyone steal my happiness, not even someone I once loved. I was stronger than I had realized, and although it would take time, I knew I would get through this. The ring was gone, Ryan was gone, but I was still here, and that was enough. The aftermath of my breakup with Ryan was not as simple as closing one chapter and moving on to the next. It was messy, complicated, and painful. Healing was not linear, and there were days when I felt like I was taking one step forward only to fall 2 steps back. But as time went on, I began to regain my sense of self. The betrayal of the engagement ring, however, still haunted me. I couldn't shake the thought of it, how Ryan had sold it, how it had symbolized everything that was supposed to be our future, and how quickly he had discarded it. But even more than that, I couldn't ignore the nagging questions that were eating at me. Why had Ryan done it? Was he lying to me the whole time? A few weeks after everything fell apart, I started to gather my strength to face the reality of the situation. I had learned that the best way to cope with such overwhelming emotions wasn't to bury them, but to confront them head on. So, after long deliberation, I made the difficult decision to reach out to Ryan once more. I needed closure. I needed answers, not just to the engagement ring, but to the relationship itself. What had gone wrong? Where had I missed the signs? Most importantly, I needed to know why he had done something so hurtful. I wasn't expecting a quick fix, nor did I think I would get the answers I wanted. But I had to ask. I called him one evening, my hands trembling as I dialed his number. It rang 3 times before he picked up. Hello. Ryan's voice sounded distant, as though he was unsure of why I was calling. The familiarity of his voice brought a rush of emotions, and for a moment, I was overcome with a deep sadness. Ryan, it's me, I said, trying to steady my voice. I need to talk. There was a pause, followed by a quiet sigh. I didn't think you'd reach out again, he said. I'm sorry for everything. I really am. I wasn't interested in his apology, not yet. Not until I got the answers I was looking for. I don't know if that's enough anymore, Ryan. I need to know why. Why did you sell the ring? Why did you lie to me? What happened to us? I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. I had caught him off guard, and I could tell he was struggling with how to answer. Finally, he spoke. It wasn't about the ring, he said, his voice quieter now. It wasn't about the money either. I was confused, okay? I didn't know what I wanted. And instead of facing the truth, I ran away. I sold the ring because I felt like I was throwing away the whole relationship, and I didn't know how to stop it. It wasn't just about us breaking up. It was everything I was afraid of. I felt a sharp pang in my chest. So, you just threw it all away? The ring, the plans, the future we talked about for years. I asked, my voice tight. You couldn't talk to me about it? You couldn't be honest with me? I know, he said, his voice tinged with regret. I should have told you. I should have come clean about how I was feeling, but I didn't know how. I didn't want to hurt you, and in the end, I ended up doing worse. The conversation felt suffocating. I could feel the weight of everything we had built together crashing down around me, piece by piece. So what now? I asked, my voice cracking. What do you expect from me, Ryan? Do you want me to just forgive you? Forget everything? He didn't answer immediately. For a long moment, There was only silence between us, and it felt like the space between us had grown impossibly wide. Finally, he spoke, his voice almost a whisper. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I don't even expect you to forgive me at all. I just needed you to know the truth. And I needed you to know that I messed up. I'm sorry. I was an idiot. I took a deep breath, trying to process his words. I don't know if I can trust you again, Ryan, I said, my voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside me. And I don't know if I even want to. I understand, he said quietly. I wouldn't blame you if you never talked to me again. I know I've lost your trust, and I don't expect that to come back easily. But I want you to know that I'm not the same person I was when we were together. I'm trying to be better. I'm just not sure if it's too late for me to fix what I've broken. The words felt hollow, and I realized in that moment that no apology, no explanation, could undo what he had done. I didn't know if I could ever trust him again. It wasn't just about the ring. It was about everything that had led to this point. The lies, the distance, the emotional abandonment. The reality was, we weren't the same people we had been when we first met, and our relationship wasn't the same either. I don't know what else to say, I finally said. But I think it's best if we don't speak again. I need to move on. I need to heal. Ryan's voice softened. I get it. I really do. I'm sorry, and I wish you the best. I hung up the phone, the weight of the conversation settling in my chest. Part of me wanted to scream, to ask why he hadn't been honest with me from the start, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. I didn't know what I was expecting from him, but in the end, I realized that no matter what he said, it didn't matter anymore. What mattered now was me. I had to let go, even if it meant accepting the loss. In the days that followed, I began to take small steps toward healing. I focused on myself, on what I needed to do to rebuild my life without Ryan in it. I started exercising more, taking yoga classes, and spending more time with friends who had been supportive during the breakup. Slowly but surely, the sting of the betrayal began to fade, replaced with a sense of clarity. I was stronger than I realized, and I had to keep reminding myself that I deserved better than someone who could treat me the way Ryan had. One evening, a few weeks after our conversation, I went through the box of wedding-related items one last time. There, buried under the paperwork and invitations, was the pawn receipt. It was a reminder of the pain, the betrayal, but also the reality that I had to move forward. I didn't need the ring, and I didn't need Ryan. What I needed was to heal, to find my own peace, and to take back control of my life. I put the receipt in the trash, watching it disappear into the bag. It was symbolic, in a way, a final step in letting go. Ryan was gone, and with him, the dreams we had built. But I was still here, and I was going to be okay. It's strange how, in the middle of one of life's most painful experiences, you can learn the most about yourself. The weeks that followed my conversation with Ryan were a time of deep reflection, self-discovery, and, in many ways, personal growth. I had spent months in a fog of confusion, hurt, and disbelief. But now, with each passing day, the fog was lifting, and I was starting to see a clearer path ahead. A path without Ryan. A path where I didn't need him to be happy, to be whole. A path where I could finally begin to rebuild my life and my sense of self. The days felt long at first. At times, I would find myself staring at the empty space on my finger where the engagement ring used to sit, the absence of it a sharp reminder of everything I had lost. But I wasn't just mourning the ring. I was mourning the future I thought we were going to have. The wedding, the family, the home we were going to build together, everything I had imagined for my life was gone in an instant. And as much as I tried to stay strong, there were days when the sadness would overwhelm me, and I would find myself crying in the quiet of my apartment. But with the sadness came clarity. The more I allowed myself to feel, the more I realized that what I had with Ryan wasn't as perfect as I had once believed. The cracks had been there all along, and I had ignored them because I wanted to believe in the fairy tale. I wanted to believe that love, when it was real, could overcome anything. But Ryan had shown me that love was more than just words and promises. It was trust, respect, and loyalty. And those were things he had taken for granted. I had spent so much time questioning myself after the breakup, wondering if I missed something, if I should have seen the signs, if I could have done something differently. But eventually, I came to realize that none of it mattered. I couldn't change what had happened. I couldn't undo the hurt. What mattered now was how I moved forward, how I reclaimed my life. A few weeks after I had thrown away the pawn receipt and moved the wedding plans into a box in the back of my closet, I started to focus on things that made me feel good, things that didn't involve Ryan. I signed up for a painting class at a local art studio, something I had always wanted to try but never had the time for. The act of creating something from nothing, whether it was a canvas or a simple sketch, became a form of therapy for me. It allowed me to express my emotions in a way that words couldn't. When I picked up the brush, it felt like I was taking control of something again, like I was putting the pieces of my life back together one stroke at a time. The class became an anchor. Once a week, I would go to the studio, lose myself in my art, and forget about everything else. It was in those moments of stillness, surrounded by the hum of other students, that I felt at peace with myself again. I wasn't thinking about Ryan or the engagement or the ring. I was just me, alone, but not lonely. I was finding my way back to who I was before I met him, but it wasn't just the art that was helping me heal. I also started reconnecting with my friends. Jessica, as always, was my rock. She had been there for me through thick and thin, and in the aftermath of the breakup, she was my sounding board, my therapist, and my cheerleader. She encouraged me to take the time I needed to process everything, but she also made sure I didn't isolate myself too much. One afternoon, she invited me to a small gathering at her apartment. It wasn't anything fancy, just a few friends, some wine, and a lot of laughter. I hadn't been out with my friends in a while, and I knew it was time. I needed to get back to my life, to enjoy the things I had before Ryan became such a central part of it. The gathering was exactly what I needed. I hadn't realized how much I had missed the simple joy of being around people who loved and cared for me. My friends didn't know all the details of what had happened with Ryan, and I didn't feel the need to explain. They just accepted me for who I was, for the person I had always been, and that was enough. Over the next few weeks, I spent more time with my friends, more time focusing on the things that made me happy, and less time dwelling on the past. It wasn't easy, but I began to see that my life didn't have to be defined by the man who had betrayed me. I could create my own story, a story that wasn't tied to Ryan or the ring or the promises he had made. I could write my own future, and it didn't have to include him. And then, one evening, just when I thought I had finally started to feel whole again, I ran into him. It was completely by accident. I was walking through the city park, enjoying the cool evening air, when I spotted a familiar face across the path. At first, I didn't recognize him. He was standing near a food truck, talking to someone, his back to me. But as I walked closer, my heart froze in my chest. It was Ryan. For a moment, I considered turning around and walking in the opposite direction. I didn't want to confront him. I didn't want to feel the rush of old emotions, the anger, the hurt. But before I could make a decision, he turned around and saw me. For a brief second, there was shock in his eyes, and I could tell he wasn't sure what to do. He quickly turned away, but I could tell he was trying to decide whether to approach me or not. I stood there, frozen, feeling a mix of emotions. I hadn't seen him in weeks, and seeing him now felt like opening a wound I had been trying to heal. He took a step toward me, his expression conflicted. "Hey," he said, his voice unsure. "I didn't expect to see you here." I could feel my heart racing. Part of me wanted to walk away, to ignore him, but the other part of me needed to know, what did he want? Why was he standing there, talking to me like everything was normal? "Ryan," I said, my voice steady but cold. "What do you want?" He opened his mouth as if to respond, then stopped, clearly unsure of how to approach the situation. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I know that doesn't change anything, but I just needed to say it. I stared at him for a long moment, my mind flashing back to everything he had done. The lies, the ring, the broken promises. "Sorry doesn't fix anything, Ryan," I said quietly. "You can't undo what you did, and I don't need your apologies anymore." I turned to leave, but before I could take a step, he called out to me. "Wait, I just want you to know that I've been working on myself. I'm not the same person I was before." I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. The truth was, I didn't care what kind of person he was now. I was done. I've moved on, Ryan. You should too. And with that, I walked away. It wasn't a grand ending, but it was the ending I needed. I had finally let go. Ryan's chapter in my life was over, and I had taken back my power. It was time for me to move forward. Not for him, not for anyone else, but for me. I didn't need him. I didn't need the ring. I didn't need any of the promises that had been broken. I had everything I needed right here, inside me, and that was enough.